Well, the Coalition spokesman on water is Senator Barnaby Joyce, and he joins me now from Canberra. Senator Joyce, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Ali.
Your reaction?
Oh, this is absurd to think that 800 jobs are going to be lost. Try thousands, Ali. And this has no recommendation whatsoever about the lives of the people, the social consequences, the economic consequences. I mean, this plan, Ali, is going to tell you a little bit about the environment, nothing about what's going to happen to the price of food in the shop near you, nothing what's going to happen to the lives of the people in such areas as Deniliquin, or whether they've actually got an economic future. It doesn't actually talk to what's going to happen to the people of Mildura. It doesn't talk to what's going to happen to the people of Griffith. It doesn't set down what the economic outcomes are, except in a very small and minor way. I think it completely underestimates the effect, and in the next coming weeks, it's going to be slammed. It's going to be slammed by reason of the lack of information on the social and economic fronts. And Australia's got to ask itself this question: do you trust the government that, in its attempt to put fluffy stuff in the ceiling and burning down 190 houses, do you trust them now to rejig the food bowl, the mechanism which feeds our nation?
Well, let's look at that estimation of cost from the Murray-Darling Basin Authority. 800 million to 1.1 billion a year in lost agricultural production and 800 jobs. What do you think is more reasonable if that's wrong?
It's just wrong. It's so wrong, it's absurd.
But what do you think is likely to be the outcome? Look,
this is a basin that produces 60% of our nation's irrigation. I think 40% of our total food for our nation, or food production for Australia. And to say that it's, $800 to $1 billion, they're just so far out. But you give me the resources that the CSIRO had over the period of time that they had, and we'll give you a better reflection of the economic outcome of this. I think it's absolutely essential that that question be answered by such as a Productivity Commission, by such as ABARE. I noted even in this report, Ali, they have this ridiculous sort of lineal progression of, if you take away 10% of the water, you lose 10% of the production. But as you know, Ali, you get to a point where the economic substantial infrastructure becomes unviable, and then when it shuts down, everything falls off a cliff. It doesn't peter down. It jumps out the window for you.
The Basin Authority says that it actually looked at cuts of 7,500 gigalitres, and that, in an ideal world, is what you need to give absolute certainty about the ongoing health of the basin. So they settled for 3,000 to 4,000 gigalitres. What do you think? I mean, what is a reasonable amount? What is the happy medium from your point of view?
Well, if you want to return everything to a completely pristine environment, Ali, the way to do it is to have us all remigrate back to England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, Greece, Italy, China and every other corner of the world which people actually came from. Then you'd have a pristine environment, but you wouldn't have an economic, a social infrastructure. You might have an environmental asset, but no one would be aware of it. To say that, we were thinking about taking out 7,000 gigalitres of water is just to put down the heavy artillery for a ridiculous decision. I don't condone that sort of approach. I don't condone the way the Labor Party have gone about this locking up the Fourth Estate in one room, locking up the politicians in another room so we can't get a story together, not addressing the social and economic effects for those families who will be devastated in some areas by what happens next. This needs an immense amount of work. It is an absolute travesty that this is the sort of information that people in Deniliquin and people in Mildura are going to have to rely on to determine whether they've got a future.
So, Barnaby Joyce, if this plan, as it stands, does get to Parliament, it is, of course, a disallowable instrument. Would you move to disallow it?
Well, we're going to do everything in our power to make this plan a far better plan. We acknowledge that there are things that need to be dealt with in the environment. That's why we put the initial Murray-Darling Basin program on the table and we put up the money for it. But we were, first of all, given a minister, Minister Wong, who talked about the moral issue of our times and that she was responsible for it and she would see it through. And then, of course, she disappeared. Now we have Minister Burke coming in on her tails and trying to work out where he is with it. The whole thing has not been, there's no respect has been shown to the people of the Murray-Darling Basin by this, sort of glib way that the Labor Party has dealt with this issue.
But you say you'll come up with a better plan. What's the benchmark for a better plan? This is 3,000 to 4,000 gigalitres. What do you think is a better plan?
Well, a better plan is one that takes into account both the social and economic and environmental aspects of where we are. A better plan is one that goes to not just the CSIRO but the Productivity Commission, the Australian Bureau of Agricultural Resource Economics, to go to proper modelling beyond the partial equilibrium modelling that they've used for this. A proper plan is one that actually can go to the people who are affected and tell them what the effect is. If you want a proper plan in your life, you want me to tell you how this decision by a Labor Green government is going to change your life. This great leap forward by the Labor Party is going to have an immense and detrimental outcome to so many people in regional Australia, and the predominant reason is the Labor Party just cannot get their mind around a proper analysis of a decision before they make it.
So to reiterate, you want a better plan, but if this plan as it stands went to Parliament, would you can it?
This plan as it stands is a bad plan. This plan as it stands, that we're talking about in some areas up to in excess of 40% reduction in the water. This plan talks about ridiculous figures such as only 800 people losing their jobs. It's so absurd. It's so wrong. No one in their right mind would say that this plan is a good plan. They'll say this plan is a plan that isn't even thought through.
So that's a yes. Well, it would not get through Parliament.
Well, I can't see how this plan... this plan is not actually even a plan. It's a range of possible outcomes. I mean, which plan are we talking about? The 3,000, the 3,500 or the 4,000? I mean, which one do you want to talk about?